Hello and welcome to this week's coffee vlog. It's Friday the 28th of January. First month of the 2022 is almost gone already. It's about 8:40, so it's a bit later than I'm not usually at. Been doing some bits and pieces when I got in, and then we've just had a delivery of a piece of equipment which I wasn't quite expecting, but so that's kind of delayed me. But we're going now, I think. So last weekend, mostly spent it up putting floating shelves up in boys' room. Finally, slowly progressing to completing the bedroom conversion, inch by inch, as I feel the energy to do it. So yeah, I've got the shelves, finally sourced those. White ones for the white walls and black ones for the grey walls, which I thought was rather organised. It was kind of funny because I found some really inexpensive white ones. I think that was Argos, but the black ones are horrendously expensive. It may have been the other way around, I'm not sure, but it was like £12 a shelf. But if you went for the opposing colour I wanted, this suddenly went up to like £22. It was like, how does that work? And I think they just must have had a big backlog of one colour. So I ended up finding some different ones from somewhere else. I think it was Dunelm. The other colour, they were about £15, so it seemed quite reasonable price-wise. So they all arrived, and they're pretty good for floating shelves, nice and solid, brackets solid, plenty of mounting points if you want to go nuts. There's 10 total holes, although it says only to use the top row of 5, which is what I did because I didn't want to drill a million holes over and over, because 5 times by 6 shelves is a lot of holes to drill in a concrete wall, or brick wall in a house obviously. So I got all those up, I managed to make them straight with a level, amazingly, and I think they look pretty good. I like them. It's going to be a bit more for light stuff, because floating shelves aren't great for supporting heavy weights anyway, but it was mainly to put the vast collection of Lego, Star Wars ships on. So slowly building my way up to putting all those up. So that was the weekend. Back to work. It's been pretty busy actually. Seems to be ups and downs at the moment. Obviously missed out this week on any trips to the Peace Hall, although I did go to Square Chapel, but obviously the Peace Hall has been shut all week for filming. Whatever has been filmed in there, who knows. But I did have a trip to Huddersfield with a big delivery and some other local drops, so it's been fairly busy. What else? God, my mind just went completely and shut down then for no apparent reason. So yeah, so it's been pretty busy. We've done a fair amount of roasting on both roasters, and a couple of big orders again to put through on this, and then just stocking up on coffee as well. The general blends and the smaller roasters running every day as usual, and we're just packing like crazy. So it's been all go really, and I've kind of been sorting out around work, reconciling things. I ended up condensing. I had 2 old towers that were doing nothing but hold hard drives, basically older hard drives with old data, old backups of the account software, and bits and pieces of old stuff that you kind of like want to keep hold of just in case, especially with the accounts. There's always the accountant says you should keep as many the sage backups and as old as you can, just in case you ever get asked for them by HMRC, etc. So I've kind of got all those floating about on loads of old drives. But the 2 PCs, one was running Windows XP, and it was ancient. And I managed to, I mean, it had just been chugging away. I could remote log into it to access the stuff on it and whatever else. But that had just come to the point where it kept deciding to shut itself off randomly, having issues. And then the other tower, I put Windows 8 on it because it wouldn't take Windows 10. It was too old chipset. But it just, I mean, that one was also, it just never really wanted to run right. It constantly lost network connection even though it was connected by Ethernet, or it could just randomly reboot itself. So that never really worked that well. I had the idea of putting all the hard drives out of the XP one that I was decommissioning into the one that had Windows 8 but putting Windows 7 on it, which I thought might be more reliable. Started to do that, and I think the fact that I then got the number of hard drives in the thing up to, I think it was 6 drives in total, it killed the ancient power supply trying to power each one of those drives, because I got so far going to install Windows 7 and then it just died and it wouldn't ever come back on again. There was power, because you could press the power button, the green light came on the motherboard, activity light flicked a second, and then it just went off again and nothing happened. So concluded that that idea was completely gone because that tower decided to die. I ended up thinking towards getting some sort of NAS storage to put 2 of the biggest drives in, and then archiving everything off that. So I had a hunt around online, and there's still really expensive network assisted storage. I mean, you can pay £250 to £500 even just for like 4 terabytes worth, depending on what model you go for. And even sort of eBay older models that you're looking at, people still waiting like around 150 if it's got drives in. Maybe 120 or so if you go with something that hasn't got the drives in at all. So it's still really quite expensive, but I managed to find an old iOmega Storcenre IX2 that was very reasonable, £20 delivered, no power supply, and obviously no instructions or anything, just this base unit, and it did post. That's all it said is it post. You plug it in and it lights up, and that's it. But we're not giving you any warranty or anything. Looked it up online, and it did seem that there's a few variations of them, and it might be quite tricky to get going. But so I decided to get that, put a couple of hard drives in, which got a 2 terabyte and a 750 gigabyte. I thought, well, those 2 have loads of storage in it, and then the other drives hook up to computers, drag the files off, and then wipe them, because the majority had old Windows installations on the drives that were obviously taking up space. So got the NAS, got this power supply, put the drives in, set it off, not a lot happened, did a lot of research, and it turns out in some sort of amazing concept that came up somewhere when they were designing this network assisted storage, this IX2, someone went, we won't put any physical storage in the device, i.e. some flash storage or anything for the operating system. We'll use the hard drives we're putting in it. Now, bearing in mind it is probably a 2009, 2010 thing, so I don't imagine flash storage was super available back then, and it was probably expensive. So this probably was a very good money saving idea. So they'd install the drives brand new, and then install the actual software that runs the whole thing on those drives. But they kind of cleverly designed it, because they had it duplicate that software on both drives. So if you had a drive failure, it would boot from the other drive, and then you could take out that failed drive, put a new one in, and it would obviously reset it up and reinstall the second amount of software. So it was kind of, there's a backup idea. But if you get it with no drives, then there's no software and it's never going to run again, which is a bit of a problem. So hunt about numerous sort of old forum links where people have had this problem. It just doesn't do anything. Found a few guides on recovering it, which turns out to be not as easy as you'd think. Went through a bit of a session of back and forth with one idea that, well, one guide that in the end wasn't ideal, but patching it in with another one actually got me where I wanted to be. So yeah, basically you have to create a USB, it has to be a certain format, it has to have a special folder in that it has to have a specially named folder of which there are two options of, and in fact I needed the second option for it to work. And then you need the recovery data, which isn't widely available. Any of this isn't available from the manufacturer. You've got to hunt it down on the internet. So it's a bit, you know, you'd think they'd just have a little zip file that says this creates a recovery USB for your device. That'd be easy, but no. So I managed to create the USB, plug it in, went through so many attempts of booting up, because to get it going you've got to put paperclip in the back, holding down the reset button, then while you're holding that down plug in the power supply, then wait for 1 minute and 10 seconds for it to try and boot off the USB to decide then if it's actually going to do anything or not. And once you've done that 1 minute and 10 seconds you can let go. So 1 minute and 10 seconds pressing a paperclip into a reset button isn't fun. But yeah, it did take 2 USBs, so at the final guide I found, they mentioned that they went through about 3 USBs before they found one it would draw the data off for some random reason. So I'd tried one and one, kept failing, tried a second one and it did it. So top and bottom is, for 20 quid I've now got a 3.5 terabyte NAS that works, and it took a little bit of fiddling, but you know, that's not so bad. So quite happy with that now. It's all set up and humming away nicely. I've dragged all that old data off the other drives, formatted those so they can be used for other things. So on the whole, that's been quite successful. I'm just going to keep backing up on top of backups, because it's always handy to have more than one backup of things, especially important stuff lurking places, so if anything happens you've got them spare. So yeah, that was my fun little bit of PC techno wizardry this week. I think Mr. Nellis has sent me some words, so let's give those a quick go and see if this comes up. So let's see. Alright, so Mr. Nellis says, my things to talk on your vlog. My mum and she went to Tiger Tank Spa in Linford in Huddersfield on Tuesday last week. Lovely. I went to see Spider-Man No Way Home on Monday evening, and I can't believe the film had the 3 Spider-Mans, including Tobey Maguire, as he's the best Spider-Man and Michael Keaton's the best Batman. Well, yeah, I actually saw Spider-Man No Way Home at the cinema with my boy on the 3rd of January. I was a bit kind of like, because he kept nagging to go, and I was kind of like, oh, Omnicron, don't really want to be in a big full space. But in the end, we went at 6 PM on that was Bank Holiday Monday, and there was like 10 people in the whole cinema. It wasn't hard to be socially distanced at all. So, I mean, it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. Even though the cinema can be extremely expensive nowadays, I don't really know how people can, you know, go regularly to them, because it's just so much money. Have you seen The Man Who Runs in And dancers in pink, yes, or I quite often see them running about. Morrison's, Sainsbury's, Waitrose and John Lewis continuing to ask to wear masks, and Boris Johnson had a party in the first lockdown we had 2 years ago. Yeah, well, there you are. Yeah, mask wearing. I think it kind of just makes sense, even though they were saying, no, you don't have to do it anyway, because it's just a better protection for you, isn't it? Especially in supermarkets and things. I mean, it's not like it's a hardship to put a mask on while you're walking around, or on public transport, or any sort of built up public space. Because, I mean, all right, we're getting into a better position now with Omicron, variant of COVID, but you know, the next variant is just, you know, it's a step away. It's the next person it infects, and it just changes because of something to do with them or whatever else, and then we suddenly see something that might, you know, be able to bypass the vaccinations, or it may cause more serious illness. You just don't know what's going to happen. So I think generally still wearing masks isn't a hardship and something we should do. Are you doing anything, or as usual, not much this weekend? I'm having a break this weekend, I think, after doing the shelves last weekend, to be honest, Mr. Norris. So I think that's me done. Burundi is what I'm drinking this morning. Yeah, it's good actually. I like this. So that's me done. Have a good weekend, week next week, and I'll catch you in next week's coffee vlog. Okay, see you.